The next morning, a stranger arrived in Mboku. Walking through the bush paths, he wore a cloak made of python skin. His face was hidden beneath a deep hood. But when he dismounted in the city square, the people could feel his power. "Who is he?" they whispered. The stranger pulled back his hood, revealing a face marked with ancient symbols. His eyes, sharp and knowing, swept over the crowd before settling on Chief Ago's face. "I am Jaro," he said in a deep, commanding voice, "the last of the Serpent Slayers. I have come to end your curse." Abeti's heart pounded as she listened outside the council chambers. She had heard everything. They planned to kill her son. Her hands were trembling in fear. Odo had done terrible things, but she couldn't let them take his life. That night, she walked into the temple. Her breath shallow. Odo was already waiting. He sat on his stone throne, his long tail coiling and uncoiling in the darkness. "You would betray me, mother," he said without turning around. Abeti's throat tightened. "They are coming for you." Odo smirked. "Let them try. You don't understand. This man called Jaro is a Serpent Slayer. He knows how to kill you." At that, Odo's golden eyes narrowed. He rose slowly, his presence filling the temple like a shadow. "A Serpent Slayer? How interesting." "Odo, please," Abeti whispered. "Run! Leave this place before it's too late." Odo took a step towards his mother. Then another. His tail slithered across the ground. Silence as death. "You still did not understand, mother." His lips parted, revealing sharp, gleaming fangs. "I'm not the one you should be afraid of." That evening, Jaro and the warrior of Mboku walked into the temple, armed with spears and arrows and fire. They passed through the stone archway, their war cries echoing. Odo was waiting for them. His body had grown even more monstrous overnight. His serpent tail was now thick as tree, his human heart rippling with strength. His golden eyes glowed with fire. "You have come to kill me," Odo hissed, his voice filling the temple. "I'm waiting." Jaro leaped forward, wielding a spear forged from the bones of a great serpent. He struck, but Odo moved like lightning, his tail wiping out and sending 3 warriors crashing into the stone walls. The battle had begun. The temple became a war zone. Spears crashed against scales. Fire lit the air. Jaro dodged Odo's strike, his spear flashing in the dim light. He whispered an ancient incantation, his body glowing with power. Odo screamed, his skin burning where the spear struck. For the first time in his life, he felt pain. He snarled, "You will regret that." With terrifying speed, Odo coiled around Jaro. crushing him in his massive tail. The warrior gasped, his ribs breaking into pieces. The villagers watched in horror. Then Abeti screamed, "Stop, Odu!" For a brief moment, her voice reached him. And in that moment, Jaro struck his heart. Odu staggered backwards. The spear was buried deep in his chest. His golden eyes dimmed. Abeti ran towards her son, tears dripping from her eyes. "My son," she cried. Odu's voice was weak. "I only wanted them to love me." Abeti clutched his face. "I love you, and I have always loved you." His lips trembled. His body began to dissolve, turning into dust and shadows. And then Odu, the oracle's child, was gone. The people of Mboku did not rejoice after Odu's death. There were no victory, there were no celebrations, only silence and mourning. The temple where he had once sat in power now lay in ruins, and the once busy city felt empty. But soon, something far more terrifying began to happen. The first child died 7 days after Odu was killed. A newborn baby boy, healthy at birth, was found lifeless in his mother's arms before night. The second child died a week later, and then the third child died. They were all baby boys. Panic spread through the city like wildfire. Families cried and lived in fear. Mothers clutched their baby boys, terrified they would be next. Every male child born in Mboku died within 7 days. The people turned to the elders. The elders turned to the oracle, and the oracle spoke. "You have slain the child of prophecy. You have spilled the blood of the gods, and now the gods demand their prize." Trembling, Chief Agu asked, "What must we do?" The oracle's voice boomed through the temple ruins, shaking the very earth beneath them. "A peace offering, a sacrifice to the gods, to cleanse the land of the blood you have spilled. Until this is done, the sons of Mboku shall continue to die." The elders gathered at the sacred shrine at the outskirts of Mboku, where the gods had spoken in ancient times. The flames of the ceremonial torches cast long shadows over the faces of the people, who stood in solemn silence, waiting for the gods' decree. The oracle's priest, a frail man with eyes as white as the moon, stepped forward, raising his staff. "The gods have spoken," he announced. "The peace offering must be great, greater than any we have ever given. We must return to balance the world." The people whispered in fear. "What do they ask of?" If Agu demanded. The priest's voice was heavy with sorrow. "We must offer the finest of our livestock, the richest of our harvests, and a sacrifice of a royal blood." Gasps filled the air. Abeti, who had remained silent in grief, finally spoke. "What do you mean, royal blood?" The priest turned to her, his face unreadable. A son of the ruling family must be given. A prince of Mboku must be sacrificed to the gods. A cry shouted from the crowds. Women wailed. Warriors clenched their fists, but none could speak against the oracle's command, for if they refused, the curse would never end. The city of Mboku gathered at the great river, where the gods were said to listen. A golden altar was built, surrounded by baskets of the finest fruits, grains, and spices. Goats, chickens, and cows were tied nearby, their restless cries filling the air. But all eyes were on the young prince, Kene, the chief's only son, who stood in the center of the altar, his hands tied with sacred clothes. He was only 10 years old, just a boy, trembling in fear, tears dripping down his dark cheeks. Abeti could not wash. She turned away, her heart breaking all over again. As the priest lifted the ceremonial knife, the sky darkened, the wind blew, the river churned violently, as if something ancient and powerful had awakened beneath its surface. Then, just as the priest was about to strike, a voice echoed through the heavens. Enough! The people fell to their knees. The sky opened, a blinding light shining down upon the altar. The oracle's voice thundered through the land. Your sufferings has now been seen. Your sacrifice has been accepted. No more blood shall be spilled. The priest dropped the knife. The boy was saved. The storm calmed, and from that day forward, the curse was lifted. After so many years passed, the people of Mboku never spoke of Odu again. His name was erased from the sacred text. His temple remained in ruins, swallowed by vines and time, but the elders never forgot. And on nights when the wind blew through the city, when the river ran strangely still, they whispered among themselves, the gods do not forget. One day, Odu may return. And deep beneath the earth, where the temple once stood, something stirred, something waiting, watching, for the day it would rise again. This brings us to the end of this story. Hey lovelies, hope you find this story interesting. If you do, please drop your thoughts in the comment section and what you've learned from this story. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel at African Storytales by Abby. Like, share this story with family and friends, and I remain your favorite storyteller, African Storytales by Abby. Bye!